Welcome to the Astro Lounge, a podcast that invites you to unwind, have a little fun, and engage in meaningful conversations with others in the astro community and beyond.
We're some astro babes turned astro besties who met at Astrology University. We believe in astrology that works with you and that your chart is completely special and unique. In this pod, we're going to have some fun with astro through games, discussions, special guests, and even more.
Hi, I'm Simona, a travel consultant turned astrologer. I now help people journey inward, serving as a guide towards deeper self-discovery, agency, and a more meaningful, wonder-filled life.
Hiya, I'm Kaia, an astrologer weaving the threads of my three passions together: theater, astrology, and witchcraft, all for the hopes of digging into these little cosmic winks for some doses of self-love and self-acceptance.
So sit back, relax, grab a cozy beverage,
and let's get cosmic in this Astro Lounge. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
We are so excited. We've got our astro buddies here today.
I know, it's our first time we have some guests on, like we promised in our intro. And so today we have the beautiful Rachelle Hicks and the gorgeous Isabella Cianciolo joining us.
Welcome back. Yes, this is the OG, the original group. Like we had spoken about in our intro episode, we had originally started with the four of us, and then we had all these different iterations and things. We had to kind of revamp it and regroup, and now they're back on with us for this episode. So I'm really looking forward to this today.
Yes, thank you both for joining us. We were so excited. This has been in the works for a little bit to be like, which episode do you guys want to get on? When are we going to get you? And so you're here. So we're so excited.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about what is known as the lunation cycle or the lunar phases, but we're going to do so via the context of the natal chart. So I know a lot of us are familiar to some degree with the lunar cycle, and many of us have, practices that we do and setting intentions at the new moon and doing things like full moon ceremonies. But this is more about the phase that we were born with and what that represents, what that signifies. So Rachel is very well versed, and this is something that you use in your practice quite a bit, correct?
Yes, I love it. Maybe borderline obsessed with it. Yeah.
So wonderful. We're going to be asking you a lot of questions about that. And Isabella, is this something that you use in your practice as well?
I haven't developed it quite as much since we studied it, but I'm super interested to talk to you more about it and see kind of like what types of ideas pop off as we use it, because I do think it's a really important tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then we have some fun little questions for y'all before we dig into the phases themselves, which I love this technique and I've been wanting to use it more. So I'm glad that this is kind of like the inspiration to start using it again. So also Isabel and Rachel, you guys were the first cohort ever of Astrology University, and then Simone and I followed. And the four of us have, and as well as some other dear friends, Stephanie as well, shout out, have become dear friends. And this like these lifelong astrological friendships and community. We also are all teaching assistants, TAs at Astrology University. And so I think our first question for you is we want to know your big three, of course. And we'll get to it, but maybe also throw out that lunar phase as well for your moon. So, Rachel, why don't you tell us what your big three are?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm delighted to be back in the lounge. It's so nice. What a great place to be. So, my big three are I'm Sagittarius rising, I have a Cancer sun, a Leo moon, and I am a new moon person.
Can't wait.
Beautiful.
How about you, Isabella?
Yeah, hey. So I am a Libra sun, Taurus moon, Cancer rising, and I'm full moon cycle person.
Hi. As Simona, we have another full moon, and we were talking about that in the Libra stuff y'all share as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. I can't wait to get into it. But the only difference is I also have the Libra sun, but my moon is in Aries, but we still have that same full
Yeah.
moon phase. So it'll be really cool when we get to that to kind of discuss how we experience that, how we all are experiencing our
Mhm.
phases. And Kaya, what about you?
Oh, yes. I've got a first quarter lunar phase for that Leo moon, accompanied with the Libra rising and Taurus sun. And you? I know you gave us a little
Yes.
tidbit.
Yeah, I just gave a little sneak. Yeah, Libra sun and Aries moon and Scorpio rising.
There we
Full
go.
moon, baby.
Awesome. And then yeah, we were just also kind of curious, how you two might describe your approach to astrology. We all studied at the same school, but within that there's so many different avenues and pillars of thought. So we're just kind of curious what your approach is to how you use your astro in your life. And whoever wants to go first.
Um, well, I think like all of us, we have the modern Western approach to astrology. So that's kind of like the big umbrella term. Um, and for like personally for me, I really like to blend like practical, grounded interpretations with weird mythical symbolism. So I use a lot of mythological references, but in terms of forecasting and looking at a birth chart, I really like to keep it very grounded and like, how could you actually use this? How does it show up in your real life? So for me, it's almost like my own blend of left and right brain when I'm working with someone.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
How about you?
Yeah, beautiful, Rachel. I love the way you talk about astrology, and I'm very in alignment with that path too. I tend to focus sometimes more on the psychological aspects of astrology. I don't actually do as much of the mythological. I really appreciate the archetypal conversations about the potentials of the chart and utilizing our options that we have to develop the chart in different ways because there's so many endless possibilities. So I really also love, and I think you're this way too, Rachel, because we have a Cancerian element between us, looking back at the past and being able to reframe past events with current knowledge, and especially utilizing the natal chart to understand past events and how the root of who we are and what we've experienced in life shapes who we now have become and who we are becoming, because that's an endless process.
Ah, and this is why we have you guys on. That's right.
So beautiful. Oh, I love that you brought up looking to the past with astrology. I feel
Yeah.
like that's some of its most, I mean, there's so many powerful ways to use astrology, but using it in a way to understand where you've come from and putting those pieces together is so powerful. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, well, with that, do we kind of want to lean into what are these lunar phases that we're talking about? Why are they important? What are they? Rachel, would you like to kind of start us off with that a little bit?
Sure. So, like, first of all, I think that this is a topic that not a lot of people know about, and I'm
Mhm.
so surprised that it is not like as important as the big three,
Yeah.
because we can literally see, like, people know what the moon phases look like, even though they might not know the names of them, they know what it looks like when it's a full moon. And they can tell when they probably don't know if it's a first quarter or a third quarter, but they know the difference between it being like half lit or a crescent moon. And so I'm like, it's amazing to me that it's not more common. Um, Ideally, I think as it becomes more popular, I would love for people to include their moon phase with their big three.
Yeah.
So, like the roots of it, Dane Rudyard was, I think, the pioneer of this particular study of mapping the lunar phase that you were born under and what is the symbolism and the characteristics that it represents in your own life. And so there are eight lunar phases, so eight possibilities that would be your own birth lunar phase. And so that would be the new moon. That is kind of like it's circular, so there's really no beginning and no end, but we can kind of say it is the reset button, the
Mm.
refresh.
Oh, I
So we
like that.
start with the new moon,
Mm.
then we go into the crescent, then we have the first quarter square, and then we have the waxing gibbous, and then the full moon, and then we have disseminating, the third quarter square, and the balsamic. So any person listening to this, one of your moon phase is one of those eight.
Oh, thank you. That was so beautifully articulated and clear. And I agree. Like, I think we started learning about this maybe year three, year four. And I remember Tony just being like, it's so fundamental. And the more, it's just more insight because astrology is anything, if it's not, it's so extra, it's so maximalist astrology. So it's like, of course, there's a phase. And of course, it's going to even give you more information. And it's just such a critical, like, all the placements are so important. But the moon sign, like, God, like our emotional foundation, how we nourish, how we need that nourishment and everything, and just adding a little bit more of that information. It feels so important.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Rachel, were you familiar with this before taking the
Mm.
course, or when you were taking the course? And this goes to everybody, actually. I'll ask the question to everybody, but since this is, Rachel, this is something that really you have really resonated with. Is it like that you went through the course like, wow, this is amazing, and I really feel it? Or was it through doing the assignments and interviewing people and people resonating with their moon phase that you're like, there's really something to this?
Oh, I had no idea about lunar phases before taking the course. And it was something that I definitely didn't fully appreciate. Um,
Mm.
so lunar phases was in year four of our 4 year long program. So it was towards the end of the entire 4 year course. And when I was about to take it, I was like, how much really could there be? The moon waxes and it wanes. I mean, what more is there? Like, I didn't know that I would get so much from it. And it was when I was in the course that I really started to become very passionate about it. And it's the nuance that it offers. So, for example, if you have a person who has the sun and moon in the same zodiac sign, they are either going to be a new moon person or a balsamic moon person. And the difference in that is quite significant. So it adds this really interesting additional layer. And so, for example, a person who has the sun and moon in Gemini, if they're a new moon person, that's very different from a balsamic moon person. So it just adds an extra layer in terms of understanding how someone may experience that. And I think that, like, for me, as a new moon person, it offered information that I hadn't actually heard so clearly in relation to other interpretations of particular characteristics of my chart. I was like, I haven't actually really heard someone say that before. So the new moon qualities were something that I hadn't quite tapped into through other chart characteristics.
Mm.
Beautiful.
And then have you seen it like coming up or when you work with clients? Do you feel like it's resonating with them or have they had any kind of like aha moments? Like do you feel like people are like, oh, yeah, I feel kind of seen with this.
I think it's very personal for people. And like the experience that I had, I've seen people have that with their moon phase. They're like, oh, it's like a little secret that they find out.
Yeah.
And I think so I love to do this with people because everyone sort of celebrates the new moon and the full moon as a collective sort of thing. It's, a big deal in pop astrology. And while it is big for the collective, it's a big cycle that we experience every 2 weeks. Um, I like to tell someone that their particular moon phase is like their own personal special moment within the lunar
Mm.
cycle. And if they can track when their moon phase is happening in real time, which will be once a month, every month, that's a special moment just for them. So I will often say to people, well, take that day for you if you can, or do something special for yourself on that day. And it gives just an extra little something that is not part of the generic, generalized sort of way that people track the moon phases.
Oh, I love
That's
that.
I love that too, and I think it's very practical too, because like you said at the beginning, the light of the moon is something we've all been like it's so easy to connect to that. And to be in a consultation and just even suggest like tracking it or going out and looking at the sky when it's part of their moon phase time, right? It's at that moment can be so powerful to connect with in a very it doesn't take much to connect in that way, right? But it can be very powerful. So I could see how that would be very profound in a consultation.
Yeah.
What about you guys? How have you experienced, like in thinking about this, even if you're not working with clients, like when you went through the course, did you feel a resonance with this topic?
I guess for me, yeah, since I'm a full moon person, I saw the resonance in the double down of the archetype of the full moon
Mm,
being related to the sign of Libra. And I, as a Libra sun, was like, oh, okay, so here we go again, just another double whammy. And I'm sure you feel the same way, Simona.
Yes.
Also as a Libra sun, also as a full moon person, where it's creating, and this is what's so interesting about astrology is that there are different ways to articulate similar types of energy, and it's
mm.
nuanced, but you'll see this emphasis of like a very specific theme that might be present in the chart. So I love discovering that in the chart, and that was something that popped out to me with learning is I'm like, oh, okay, more emphasis um, on the other, which apparently I have a strong need to move through in this lifetime. So I know we'll get there when we actually go through the meaning of the phases. But Rachel, I actually had a question for you. How long does the moon stay in each phase?
In real time, it stays only oh so if it's in each sign for about 2.5 days or so, probably 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay. So anywhere in that window of time to kind of celebrate your phase would be interesting because I was thinking it's not the same as a lunar return, right? Which is when the moon once a month enters into the same sign as your natal moon, but the lunar phase association would be different each month because the actual sign of the moon would shift depending
Yeah.
on the sign of the sun, so that that phase association won't be consistently always in the same part of your chart. But that, so I'm thinking about this for the first time because I've never really considered that before, how that adds a different level of mystery to participate with.
No, it is so specific to someone's birth chart because it's not like everyone who is a if, for example, you have a Taurus sun and then the sign after Taurus would be Gemini, it's not that, so if you are a Taurus sun and then the next sign over is Gemini, the two options would be either a new moon or a crescent moon. But it doesn't mean that like everybody with a Taurus sun and a Gemini moon is a new moon person. Like you have to actually look at someone's birth chart to be like, is it the new moon or is it the crescent moon? And I love that it's so specific, It's not just a fully generalized thing.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, it's very beautiful to consider how a moon sign could have a very different quality depending on the phase that it's in. It can really shape it. So yeah, it does add a beautiful level of nuance. Kaya, what was your experience with the
Um,
course?
I laughed because when I for when I looked at some of the qualities of the first quarter moon, I was like, oh my God, yeah. It's just like sometimes in astrology, things are so affirming or like embarrassingly like on point, and you're like, and I think I was a little resistant to it at first, not the lunar phases, just like my individual phase. And then I just kind of fell in love with it because I love the moon so much. And I really like we did an exercise where we had to like interview people in our life and see if it resonated with them, if they felt, that was like accurate. And it really was. And right now I would say I've I realize I haven't really been working it in with readings and potential clients and whatnot, and I would really like to. And I think actually some of my questions today for you, Rachel, and maybe this will also kind of flow as we go through the conversation, is how you kind of work that in when you're talking about someone's moon sign and you introduce a lunar phase. Do you even kind of like, yeah, how does that kind of work out when you're talking about it? So that's something I'm going to try to steal from you today and see.
You are welcome to it.
Okay, great. Awesome. Okay. Well, should we do we feel like we want to kind of start going through the phases, or is there anything else we'd kind of like to lay out in the foundations or about the moon in general?
Well, actually, I think your question there, like how can you
Oh, yeah,
introduce this to a client? I mean, I'm happy to kind of cover that now before we
that'd
actually,
be
because
great.
once we get into the
Yeah,
phases, we'll just like get
true, true.
lost in
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Let's dive in.
Um, Yeah, so I mean, so in Dane Rudyard's book, so his book actually is called The Lunation Cycle, by Dane Rudyard, and that's kind of like where it sort of was birthed in a way. I'm sure that, there's probably people who've talked about it before, but in terms of, it being concise and in a text and all sort of put together, it was really him who did it. And he kind of describes it as a plant life cycle.
Mm,
So the new moon is like the seed where you can't really see anything. There's all the potential there. And then, the crescent moon, it like emerges as a little sprout and then it continues to grow. And then, of course, like the full moon is like the flowering. And then as the plant sort of starts to dwindle down and become fertilizer for the soil, it starts to sort of go back to the earth. It probably even sort of distributes its own seeds to continue another cycle later on. The plant cycle is really great. So it really just depends. There's a little thing that I dance around, mostly because when we are working with someone, we only have like a small amount of time to actually
mm,
cover a lot of detail. And
yeah.
so it depends on like how well I know someone that I'm working with. Like, is it the first session we've ever had together? What's the pace of the session like? Like, do we have time to like explore this? Does it seem really important? Because very easily, this concept can really get into the question about past lives and karma. Because if you
Oh.
are a seed, well, where am I coming from? Or if I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm at the very end of the cycle, well, where have I been? Where have I been? Where was I before this? So it can get very, very deep very quickly, which is great. It's a fantastic exploration. But if someone hasn't really thought about that up to that point, it
Mm.
might, if you have 30 minutes to have that conversation with the person, that might be amazing. But if you have like 10 minutes left of a consultation,
Yeah.
I might not bring in anything that will get us into the territory of past lives and karmic cycles. So, when I simplify it, I will literally just say, okay, well, you know what the moon looks like. You know what it looks like when it's a full moon. You know what it looks like when it's a crescent moon. So you have in your birth chart one of those moon phases that is specific to you. And people will go, really? Tell me what my moon phase is. And then I just tell them their moon phase and some of the characteristics. So if I only have like 10 minutes to talk to someone and I'm watching the clock, I will just sort of go in that direction. But
Mm.
if I want to go a little bit more existential, I will bring in, you can go pretty far with it with the plant cycle. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's super helpful because it could be there's so much to it, and I think just the moon sign itself, it's so it's so deep and it's so embedded. It's like such an emotional foundational core system. And then to add that piece, I like how you can kind of consolidate it in that way, like literally just kind of getting out there and noticing. As you were speaking to earlier, like people have all seen it, whether they practice astrology or not. We've all seen how the moon shifts and it ebbs and flows and it changes shape and size like all the time. So even just that aspect of getting someone out there, like outside and noting it is probably just a big step in itself. And then maybe going deeper into it in another session. Maybe I like this. Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
I also think it's, you mentioned Dane Rudhyar came up really with this concept. And just for those that might be listening that are also a little bit more advanced in their studies or have already started thinking about these things, it's just interesting as we go through the moon phases, just to think that this can actually be applied to all the planetary cycles and relationships to each other. So just something to think about that plant cycle. If you have different planets like sextile each other, and now I'm getting a little bit more advanced, but square, just
Yeah.
that can also be thought of in a similar way. Just something to keep in mind as we're moving through this with the lunar phases.
Exactly. Yeah, it ties into what we were talking about in our previous episodes and story of the round and the process, cyclical oriented astrology. And like at any point in time, you're somewhere in this cycle and this pattern and astrology
Yes.
is, and it's all in conversation too. Of course.
Yes, and bringing up the story of the round, that's right. So as we think about it, we might even hear in a phase, oh, this kind of sounds like this sign.
Yeah.
This kind of sounds like there's those qualities because it is in that process, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just something to think about.
Ah, okay. Shall we do we want to new moon it and start? I don't know. Is that a phrase?
Let's new moon it.
Let's new moon it, Rachel. You want to start us off going through the
Sure.
phases? Anything else we'd like to add
I
before?
will I will be the new moon ambassador for for the
Perfect.
group.
Yes.
So, okay, maybe we'll kind of weave in a bit of the plant life cycle because
That'd be
we have
great.
some time and we can sit with it. We can handle
Yeah.
it. We can handle, the fact that maybe there has been more, maybe there has been more than this life. Um, okay, so the new moon, and kind of going into that idea, it's like there's a seed, but it doesn't necessarily, like some people might even think, well, does that mean this is my very first life I've ever had? And it's like not necessarily. You might even think of it as like when you clear the cache on your computer. It's like you just refresh, reset. You're not carrying as much baggage. You sort of like decluttered your home. It's from a soul perspective. So, but whatever way you come at it, whether you think it's from a past life sort of perspective, or you just think of it from a psychological standpoint, that like the new moon represents these characteristics. However you approach it, the new moon is like that seed moment. It is, in the actual sky, it's dark. It's the lowest visibility. We cannot see anything. It's when it's the darkest. So it's very mysterious. It's very like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know if there is a path to go forward on.
Yeah.
It's just pure potential. And so with new moon people, there tends to be a sense of this kind of wide-eyed wonder. And this is where it becomes very nuanced with various different signs, because like a wide-eyed wonder for Gemini is very different from a wide-eyed wonder for Capricorn, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting when you get into the different signs, but and like one of the challenges is that the new moon people can have a bit of be naive a little bit, where it's like it's almost like they don't have the same type of energetic baggage to know what to watch out for, and part of their life learning is to kind of explore new things and figure out, oh, that wasn't great. That was fun. Okay, log it in. Like
Yeah.
they're not quite sure what to act. It's like when you think of a child and they don't know not to touch a hot surface. It's like, oh, great. Okay, I figured that out. But in a way, it's like they kind of carve a new path. So yeah.
Mm. Do you feel like there's a lot of in you and then the people maybe who you found who are also new moons, is there that kind of like inherent like enthusiasm and the energy and just like is there a sense of like impulsivity at all? Like it sounded a little when I was like rereading, going over it, like there's some like Aries qualities, but it also felt like there's some others, maybe oddly some Pisces stuff too in an interesting way. I don't know, is there any of that kind of going on, do you feel?
Hmm. Yeah, I certainly think like impulsivity, of course, like this is where the signs really make a difference.
Right.
I think the idea of the unknown and however a sign would approach the unknown. So Capricorn might just be cautious, but it's not caution based on experience. It's like caution
Mm,
based on I don't know, and I don't have a map. What do
yeah,
I do? Whereas like the unknown for a Leo or a Gemini or Sagittarius, it's like "Wah!"
yeah. That's so
you
It
know,
true.
might feel different, and that unknown might feel different to those different moon signs.
yeah, so it's this like what will I do? Interesting. Like let's see what happens. I certainly like like on a personal note, like I wouldn't be a very judgmental person, but it's not from a place of trying to not be judgmental. It's almost like I just have like I don't have like a blank slate of like whatever you're telling me. I'm like whatever you're telling me is it's almost like the first time I've ever heard it, you know?
Oh,
It's an interesting feeling. I like listen. I'm like, really? Okay. It's almost like the first time I've experienced that. It's a weird thing, even though maybe I have experienced certain things. And it's like
Right.
I'm trying to develop uh, lived experience in this lifetime, but it feels like I'm adding to a small pot in a weird way.
Oh. Well, it feels like I feel this around you. Like there's a very like beautiful like openness and like kind of an acceptance. Like I've never felt like a judgment from you. That's so interesting. Yeah, it's more like, oh yeah, it's some, and like an inherent. I know there's other stuff in the chart too, of course, but like I don't know, like there's a little bit of like a curiosity too. That's
Mm.
very open and like okay.
Like, oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And of course, I would have experienced the naive version as well, where I wouldn't assume that someone's going to lead me in the wrong direction. Like, luckily, I mean, I feel like I have some very nice, I don't know, cosmic helpers around me, so I've never gotten into anything too troublesome, which I'm very grateful for. But at the same time, like, I just don't assume, that someone's going to like I've learned over time, but it definitely has felt new like in terms of this lifetime. Whereas I know some people who are just naturally more skeptical or cautious in terms of other people.
Hmm.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Ones who have lived more of the lunar cycle. No, silly.
I'd love to know, does anybody like here know other new moon people? Do you have like a personal experience with new moon energy?
I'm trying to think because when I did this assignment and interviewed like my
Yeah.
family, there were a lot of like crescent and full and first quarter, but I can't think off the top of my head right now someone that with
Mhm.
besides you that has the new moon. I'm sure there's plenty, but how about you guys?
No, either. I'm also thinking, I'm like, let me pull
Yeah.
up a couple charts in my
Yeah.
perspective, you
You
know?
know, oh, jinx. I was, and maybe Isabella, you'll feel resonant with this a little bit, but we use the full moon a lot in witchcraft, right? Or a lot of people use that in rituals. However, the more the woo woo of us, the spiritual of us, and the new moon is also a very potent time. Of course, in astrology, it's a great time to people say right intentions, regarding looking at the astrology, it's kind of, not every new moon is like, let's go for it. Yeah. But sometimes it can be, as you said, Rachel, like a good reset, a good refresh. And so the way that practitioners or astrologers or people use new moon, even if they don't have the new moon, do you see that kind of in alignment with how astrology describes the new moon phase, if that makes sense? Like there's a lot of energy and focus towards new moon and full moon, of course, and how
Mm.
people work with it. Yeah.
Good
Oh,
question.
absolutely. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of correlations with that.
Okay.
Like it's like um in a way, it's like the idea of it to me feels like, I wonder what we could do, but it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like there's a lot of action in it, but there
Mhm.
like action happens, but it just feels very curious. Yeah, it's like
Okay.
curiosity. And like, I wonder what could happen.
I feel like that's a great phrase for it. I wonder what could happen.
It is
Yeah.
a great phrase.
Yeah. Awesome.
Rachel, did you have clients that you've worked with that with the new moon phase that had maybe in a different sign or whatnot from yourself that they've had a little bit of a different experience or a subtly different experience than yourself?
Absolutely. Well, actually, one of my best friend, Kayla, she actually has the new moon in Sagittarius. But what's
Oh.
really fascinating is that she has the sun and moon in Sagittarius, but she has a whole ton of Capricorn planets as well. So she has a really interesting combination of
Yeah.
Sagittarius and Capricorn, and she has the most amazing combination of being able to just be like, oh, well, I'll just go see and like I'll just try this. But like such amazing work ethic. Like she will put in the hours and she's very practical, very grounded. Like she has no problem just, clocking in the hours, but she doesn't the way like a lot of people I know would be like, "Oh my God, like that was such a slog. What a day." I've literally never heard her say that. She was like, "Oh yeah, I did like 8 hours. Now I'm gonna go do this." And it's like it's just not like carrying a lot of energetic baggage in a way. It's fascinating. So I can see the new moon quality where, some of the Capricorn influence might take it on as like a burden, and it just doesn't feel like a burden from her.
Lovely.
I love that. That's such an interesting way to think about it. It's funny as you were speaking, I'm like, well, that's kind of how I think about you. And you have Saturn on the ascendant, right?
Yeah.
And I always think you have got this open quality and just open to all these new ideas. But yet I look at you, I'm like, you're so disciplined, you have a great work ethic, So with your, I guess there's a little bit of a resonance there with Saturn on the
Mhm.
ascendant. But yeah, it's interesting to think about that, those
Are you saying we were
nuances.
destined to be best friends?
Yes, you
Oh,
guys are destined.
that is interesting. It's like, do you pull in people? Like, are we pulling in lunar
Right?
phases? And then maybe the ones we're kind of tricky with, we're like, oh, you're at the other end of the cycle.
That
Interesting.
would be a good study, like who we're drawing in our relationships more often. Do they
Yeah.
carry a certain phase, or in a moment in time, maybe we're drawing in a certain period of in our life, a lot of
Mhm.
like full moon people, because maybe it's a time we're trying to
Oh,
gain
yeah.
more awareness about something.
Yeah.
It's an
Hmm.
interesting think about, Kai. I love it.
Ah, astrology.
That's actually that would be a great project for anybody to do is just like make a list of the main like the top I don't know 10 or 20 people that you have in your life, whether it be friendships, family, working relationships, and just see like is there a dominant like is there a particular moon phase in your work life or a particular moon phase in your friendships or
Oh,
something, you know?
oh
Yeah.
no. We've opened up a oh, this is a webinar in in place. I love that. Well, any other thoughts about new moon before we plunge forward into the rest of the cycle?
Let us break through the soil now.
Ooh,
As
I
Dane
like
Rudhyar
it.
would
Soil,
say.
yes.
I'm ready.
Let's meet some resistance and break through.
Yay.
Uh, so yeah, now the crescent moon comes next, and that's literally when you see that like fingernail sort of shape in the sky. And the crescent phase, if you think about the plant cycle that Dane Rudhyar references, it's literally when, the sprout has emerged from the soil. So the way I like to think about this is that the sprout, it's like it has to use so much energy to kind of burst forth, but it's also so delicate. And with crescent moon people, there can be this overall life lesson about sort of pushing through that inertia or like the resistant or the sort of drag from the past or like whatever might feel sensitive to that delicateness of, there's like I really can build a stock, but it's like, it's hard.
Yeah.
There's like that real desire to push forward, but it can also feel like even if you think about if anyone here has ever lifted weights or something or done a physical activity that when you're first doing it it can feel like a lot and it's not like imagine you do something that's a physical activity that's completely new. The first couple of times you do it are going to feel fresh and exhilarating, you'll get some good endorphins from it, but it's when it's like, oh, I'm just like past the sort of first honeymoon sort of phases and it's like it's starting to get a little tricky now, like it's a little hard now and I have to kind of feel like do I want to keep going forward? Am I going to commit to this? It's a little hard, but I want to. I want to keep going forward, but I'm starting to feel there's a bit of a struggle.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful imagery that you use. I love this analogy with the plant cycle because you can really actually feel what it might be like to be in that phase. It's not so conceptual. It's really you're able to actually understand that push and that resistance. I'm sorry, nothing else to add other than another. I love the storyteller archetype that you come in with your Sag rising, Rachel. It's always
Yes.
nice to hear you narrate things.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I was thinking also this is just to ground it in the technique too, or if someone has it to look like at their own phases. This is from 45, is it 45 to 90? Right,
Yeah.
this phase. And
Mhm.
so I find what's interesting is that within this phase is also the sextile. So you have the semi-square where there's that resistance and that pushing through and trying to, like you were saying, get through the soil and get past some of these habits from the past. But also for able to do that, then you meet with the sextile. And I feel like this is also a phase of learning to develop new skills and talents and honing in on those talents and skills. So I think it's kind of cool how each phase can carry that both that resistance but also that sense of ease when you are able to push through the soil in a sense.
Yeah, and I'm curious how, like, what's some advice or what are ways that someone with a crescent moon, when if they feel like they're like, yeah, I feel kind of resonant with like this resistance, maybe a little bit of, oof, I don't know if I want to keep like going on this because that was making a lot of sense when you're like the honeymoon phase maybe has kind of dissolved a little bit, and it's like, the first 3 days of starting a new habit, you're like, hey, yeah, I'm doing it, woo, and then the
Exactly.
fourth day, you're like, you're like, maybe I'll sleep in a little bit longer. It won't hurt, right? So I'm just kind of curious, what is a way that someone could maybe like work with that energy if they've got this? It's my favorite shape, the crescent moon. But how might they work with that?
Yeah, well, I love what you said there as well about, that idea of when you start a new habit or you have a particular goal that's like a more long-term goal. It is those first few days when you feel really enthusiastic, and then it's, a few days in, or, however long it is of your long-term goal, where
Mm,
it's like, oh, okay, this is actually requiring like some effort from me.
yeah.
And I'm having to kind of like time manage and all that. So, I've worked with quite a few crescent moon people, and it is an interesting one because I think that, especially this, I think the crescent moon is very interesting to think about in the context of the sort of foundational beliefs of our sort of modern society, where it's like that idea that, well, you should be able to do all of these things when you're a certain age, or, various different
Right.
things like that. And for crescent moon people, it doesn't really feel that way. It can feel like at any age, like they may have just like, it can almost feel like, well, why doesn't it feel like I've done all the things that other people are doing? Because it's like they're having it, there's a delicateness to collecting experiences. And I would encourage them to not be so hard on themselves if it feels like, oh, how come that person succeeded in something and it only took them a year, but for me, it feels like it's taking 5 years to do. Like, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a competition, or, just because it took you a little bit longer to do something doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that process. So
Yeah.
I think crescent moon people can feel a bit uh, discouraged, when they're moving forward because it's a little bit, it feels very delicate.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's a great word for it. I hadn't really thought about that. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense,
Yes.
especially since it's just kind of like sprouting through. This is delicate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm,
And it's like, I think in a way, the sort of way that people work with intentions and, how that's a very
yeah.
popular concept. I think for crescent moon people, it's very important for them to just continue to move forward without having their goal be on like the top of the mountain. It's like, just keep doing what you're doing, focus on the present, continue to move forward. Don't be so discouraged, but also don't put so much pressure on yourself that you have to like reach the peak or feel like you've, completely succeeded. Like enjoy the moment and enjoy the process a bit more.
Why is this feeling kind of Capricorn Virgo energy a little bit, or like like just I know that may not be at all in alignment. Like it's I know, but I was just like just the advice you were kind of giving there. I'm like,
That's
Yeah.
actually interesting. Yeah, maybe, well, it is kind of funny because now, like, we can see the new moon correlations a little bit with kind of an Aries energy. But yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I wouldn't necessarily match the crescent moon energy
yeah.
with like a Taurus or the Gemini necessarily. So,
I know. I was like, that's
yeah.
so interesting when you hear like other some signs filtering into the phases.
Well, you
Well,
can
actually, oh,
that
sorry, go on.
there's 8 phases and there's
Yeah.
12 zodiac signs, so it
Mm,
really only seems applicable in with the cardinal signs
mhm.
potentially, and the
Oh,
squares and the opposition maybe. And I don't know exactly if you all would agree with that, but it's a difference in the way that it's divided, so it doesn't quite align.
right. Yeah.
I know. I was
Well,
just thinking because in the crescent phase, if you were to start with Aries as the new moon, then if you were to bring in Taurus and Gemini, like Taurus is about not moving so much.
Yeah.
It's about enjoying just whatever. It's good. But Gemini is like that excitement and curiosity. And so maybe it's like that sort of challenge in between those two where it's like, do I stay or do I go? Do
Oh,
I,
that's a great way to see it.
you know?
I love that. And that was bringing to
Oh,
mind also with Taurus is developing the roots. And as someone's pushing through and pushing through that resistance, and then
yeah,
they start, I loved your advice at keep going at it little by little versus thinking of it as a big thing, just that
yeah,
simple kind of keep pushing forward and forward. And then that kind of quality of, you said, just enjoy it, which sounds very Taurus, Venusian, sextile-y, within that, like enjoy it and develop those skills and talents and build that confidence slowly. There's something to that. And of course, as
yeah,
astrology, we want everything to fit neatly in this
you're right.
kind of, and it doesn't, but there's an essence, a quality that we
Yeah,
can kind of feel, but it won't necessarily match the signs exactly, but there's something there.
absolutely. I love that. Yeah, that little between Taurus and Gemini, like having like a Taurus placement. There is sometimes when what was resonating to me as I was rereading that out the crescent phase, I'm like, oh yeah, like they're the shadow of that to like kind of stay in the stagnancy and to not be willing to maybe go out and try a little bit. And I also agree with the advice you're giving too, because it's like it's okay, like don't worry about getting it right here, right now, because that might even like prevent you from keeping going, right?
It does. I think
Yeah.
about advice that an old mentor manager of mine used to tell me in regards to getting promoted and moving up through a company.
Mm,
Uh, and he was saying that too often people will have their eyes set too far off into what they're trying to achieve, and then they don't do the job that they're actually assigned, or they don't do it well. And so he was
mm,
always saying, focus on the job that you actually have and do it well, and then the rest will naturally come and grow. And it was very true, for me, at least in that experience. And it's the same with the seedling examples, because if the seedling's job right now is to grow roots and establish a strong stalk, it can
mm.
do that to later bear fruit and flowers. But if it's too focused on that, it'll die. It won't make
Yeah.
it. Its energy will
That's
go to the
beautiful.
wrong place.
Hmm.
I love that. It's like you have to lay the found. We were talking about this in our story around lay the foundation. And so there's
Yeah.
that Taurus quality to really establish those roots. And there is part of the stage is breaking, pushing past the comfort, which is very Taurian.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can hear that kind of quality coming in. Yep.
Very true.
Oh, lovely. All
Should we
right. Yeah.
move on to the next phase, to the first quarter phase?
Well, do you want to say anything, Kaya, before we go
Now
into it?
I want to hear you talk.
Okay.
Especially when it's Rachel.
Okay, so the first quarter phase, one of the phrases that people will use is crisis in action. And so action is very much a part of the development of a first quarter phase. This, and again, in the plant cycle, this is like after the sprout has sort of developed a stronger stalk. It's a bit more robust. It's not as delicate. It's feeling like, oh, okay, I feel a bit more confident with this. You've like started on this, or you've gotten past that bit of resistance. You feel you're a bit more established, your skill sets are a bit more clear. And so with the first quarter square, the idea is to continue taking action forward. And so that would be the ideas, like almost like just collecting action, like being like, okay, what can I do now? What can I do with all this energy? I'm going to go try this. I'm going to go try that. And there will be crisis involved because it's almost like, again, imagine like from a broad perspective, we're going from the new moon up to the full moon. So and the
Yeah.
first half is a growth phase. So you have to grow, you have to explore. There's a sense of newness and discovery in the whole first part of the cycle from the new moon to the full moon. And so the first quarter square is like, okay, I'm going to really start to experience things that is going to help me mature forward.
Yay. Well, and then talk about crisis in action. Isabella's Zoom just popped up. That's so interesting. We're always speaking to the archetypal realms here, so she'll probably pop back on. But yeah, I concur. I agree. It's like as you were speaking, I realized I have this quote in my room somewhere that says to live is to keep moving. And but I'm like, but it is, and there's like action and movement and the crisis stuff, that just really resonated in kind of like the mundane every day, like trudging along. Oh, now we gotta square this, and now we gotta square that. Like that square energy feels very it feels very present. It's quite energetic and action oriented. Absolutely. Yeah.
And also, I think another quality with the first quarter square is about learning how to manage your energy. So when you're
Mm,
taking action, you're expending energy. But if this is kind of new territory, because everything from the new moon up to the full moon feels a bit new and fresh.
yeah.
It's like you're using energy in different ways and you're having to adjust yourself. So a third
Okay.
quarter square person might go forward with something, but then they realize, oh, I'm maybe not managing my time very well. I'm like, getting exhausted doing this. I need to kind of adjust
Mm,
how I'm using my energy. And so that's part of that crisis as well as or like troubleshooting. It's a very much a troubleshooting type of moon phase.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just kind of letting that sink in for a little bit there.
Now I know I'm going to have questions, Rachel, when we get to the next moon phase and the troubleshooting aspect of that, because in the differentiation between like the adjustment of the quincunx versus the troubleshooting of a square
Yeah.
and the tension. And so curious maybe now if you can further go into that difference, or at least with like the square quality of what
Yeah.
type of troubleshooting that is.
Because we're in Kaia's moon phase, by the way, I love metaphors, obviously. So I'll use like any metaphor because I think different people resonate with different metaphors, and so one might land differently for someone else. So since we're in Kaia's moon phase, we'll bring in a theater example. So
Great. Yeah.
so imagine like the new moon is like when the idea of the show has only just started.
Mm,
And the people who are producing the show, they're like, I have this amazing idea. Okay, this is great. So then you go into the crescent moon phase, which is about, okay, where's the venue? Who are the actors? How are we gonna can we do this? Is it possible? That's like the
oh,
crisis of the crescent moon is like, is it even possible? Can we go forward with this? And then the first quarter phase is like, okay, we found the venue, we have the actors, now we've got to work. Like we've got to build a set. We've got to get these actors trained. They've got to learn their script. We've got a lot to do.
yeah.
There's a big to-do list here. Oh my gosh. Um,
Yes.
yeah. I have a big to-do list here. So, to kind of preview the next moon phase, which is the waxing gibbous before the full moon, it's like, okay, actors are trained, they know their lines, the set's built, we have been promoting the thing, but we have to make sure that all the final touches are okay. We have to like do some final rehearsals. We have to are all the tickets okay? Do we have people like are all the actors still healthy? Do we have to call the understudy? Like that's the waxing gibbous is when there's that fine tuning.
Oh
But the first quarter square is the action. It's like, okay, we got to look after all these tasks.
God. Yeah, it's so task oriented, so to do oriented. Like literally, and maybe this is resonant of it. Like you guys probably heard me always talking about like I'm trying to cultivate these consistent routines and and it is time management, it's energy management because there's so much that I want to do. And then also these things that come up and I'm like, okay, I need to like really like think about this, but it feels so action oriented all the time. Like that feels very present. And that metaphor helped a lot,
Mhm.
like a lot.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
It's
That's
such
really
a great metaphor. And I know I don't want to jump too far ahead in the next phase, but I was also thinking like, yeah, the action phase for the first quarter square, but then like when you get towards
Yeah.
the end, like things start to like sometimes pop up that you have to make all these adjustments last minute, you know? It's like, oh no, I've got to tweak, I have to adjust, I didn't see this coming. And it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like you get blindsided sometimes right at the end before you have to put on the show. So that was such a great metaphor there, Rachel. I
Yeah.
love it.
And something interesting to think about, like, so someone listening to this may think to themselves, well, I have a big to-do list, but I'm not a first quarter square moon. So it's not about only first quarter square moons being involved in action. It's about
Mm.
what does it mean for you at a soul level? So Kaia and another person with a different moon phase might be doing literally the exact same things, the exact same types of action, but it will feel different for them. For Kaia, it's more
Yeah.
like a soul's learning, a soul's journey. It resonates more deeply, this sort of like fine tuning and how do I navigate this? Like what am
Oh
I
yeah.
supposed to do? How do I need to adjust myself? Whereas for someone else, they might be taking these actions, but it's not the same type of lesson, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely.
Kaya, do you find, because when I was going back through this material too,
Mm.
um, it was speaking to how like sometimes like there's two ways that as you get used to and comfortable with the energy at first, so it can feel very overwhelming. Like some people, it's like they get into it, it's like they become like the heroes that step in are always like in crisis or almost draw crisis to them so that they can show up and it just kind of
Yes.
happens. But before getting to that stage, it can be feel very chaotic or overwhelming. Like you're always in this kind of moments where like, why is there all these, why is it always like
Yes.
I'm always in crisis, you know?
Yes.
Do you have that experience ever or have you had that experience?
No, it's pretty smooth. Yes, and it comes up a lot, especially at work, working with children and but also I'm a supervisor, so it's like managing staff and adults and emotions that come up there. And it does feel like very intervening in crisis or in within like friendships and relationships. I have found because I was listening to those notes too, I'm like, oh, that resonates a lot too. It's like it's sometimes these other crises that are coming up and you're like spewing out action and encountering with, but it does, as Rachel was saying, feel very resonant with that. It is on like that deeper kind of soul level there. So yes. Well, I mean, shall we move to the waxing gibbous?
The
Yes.
wax
Yeah.
I think we've already kind of hinted at it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so the next one, and this is kind of uh we've just covered this is like number four in from the new moon. And so this is almost like all the ones we've talked about is part of the growth phase. So once we hit the full moon, we're kind of coming down the other end. So you can think about this as like that moment of, oh my gosh, okay, we are almost at the peak. You're climbing up the mountain. You can see the top of the mountain. You're almost there. You're having to sort of go forward with your last burst of excitement and energy. And, using the theater example, this is that moment just before the show starts, before the
Yeah.
curtain is drawn. And this is very much, if we were to associate it with the zodiac phase, I think this would very much align with the Virgo energy, where it's that desire to fine tune. And this one's very interesting, where um, in people's charts that have no Virgo or very, very little Virgo, or like it's not part of a major VIP planet, it's very interesting how the waxing gibbous phase can add a bit of a Virgo type of energy, a type
Oh,
of discernment, a type of more like analytical in a particular way, but really just wanting to fine tune or adjust or be like, okay, I'm spotting these details that other people aren't spotting. So that's really interesting to notice how it adds that extra bit of Virgo that's not Virgo. Yeah. It's like it's almost like an anticipation as well. If it's not necessary, like if you want to distinguish it from Virgo, the anticipation quality, it's like, oh,
It's coming, it's
something is
coming.
about to happen.
mhm.
Almost time for the show. Yeah. We got to make sure Mama Luna's and her looks as best as she can before we put her out there on full display. I love it.
Like that sounds really interesting. Like we can feel the excitement and anticipation in these metaphors, but imagine someone that lives with this particular type of moon. Like it might feel like they've almost accomplished something, but never quite. They've never
Yeah.
quite gotten that feeling of satisfaction that they're sort of chasing. It's like that carrot dangling. They're so close, but not quite. And I think that can be very helpful and validating to speak with someone with a waxing gibbous moon and just be like, okay, it not dissimilar to the crescent moon. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's just, take our wins. Let's enjoy, what we've done because it can feel like that moment of anticipation that like the full moon energy never quite comes because they were born under the waxing gibbous, you know?
And I think it's important at this point too. I know we're not talking about progressions, but to
Mm.
remind people that at all points throughout our life, we are going through different phases despite the natal phase that we're born under. So people are not relegated to a life where they never achieve anything and they're always like just about to, just because they're in that phase. But that underlying energy being so potent as a driving force
Hmm.
that, like you said, is validating to know that that is a theme that they're working with and to deeply, more deeply understand, but then to also know that there will be different phases that evolve throughout their life, that they'll also get to experience those moments of culmination and then the rebirth and the starting over and things too. Because I always remind people when I talk about some of these archetypes that at the end of the day, though, we're these evolving, complex beings that are actually constantly moving through different energies, despite being born under specific ones. It's not static. And I know that that kind of brings in another layer of complexity, but I also find it releases some of the pressure or that feeling of confinement that we can otherwise get sometimes when we hear certain things that we're like, oh God, so I'll never finish it. I'll never actually get there. It's nuanced.
Ah, I love that you brought that up because yes, that could be, we will have that as a whole other podcast on the progressed lunar phase because it's so rich. But reminding people, I'm so glad that you brought that up because yes, we have a baseline energetic and quality, but there will be moments that we get to bring things to fruition. So yes, stay tuned for a future podcast where we'll discuss all that because it's so rich and such a beautiful addition to this part of the conversation. So
And I
thank you.
think it's also, looking at these phases, I think what also tends to come up is the sort of societal and cultural biases, depending on where you grew up, depending on your family, where like, why would someone prefer, the curtain drawn moment? Why is that better? It's not
Yeah.
actually, why are certain moments of like success better in a way? It's
Right.
not actually it's a perception. Just changing your perception. And when you can kind of be very satisfied and comfortable in your moon phase and not see it as something lacking because it's not. It's just where you are. You'll also get to sort of, I think, really heal some of those deep cultural or societal biases that are not really great for us in many different ways.
That's so
Yeah, that's
beautiful.
such a good point to make. Yeah,
Yeah.
that we all have different roles to play and that it's
Yeah.
different callings for us too. And yeah, there are those people who feel so much better behind the scenes helping the production go on, but they don't want to be on stage.
Yeah.
That's why we have the stage manager and the other people who help make it happen. It's so important.
I know. I love this. It's another way of, excuse me, accept, excuse me, first quarter. Um, it's another way of, acceptance and kind of that self love too, and that validation. Another reason why I love astrology so much because maybe to be seen, and also the whole idea of like this, it's the relationship between the sun and the moon, and the whole concept of light and whatnot. And it's not just about the full moon or the new moon. Like I love that lunar phases also shows, as you said, like where you are, and then that's absolutely like beautiful and perfect. Like you shouldn't have to like try to edit your phase or censor your phase, right? That's all because it's all so important to the cycle. Because without one of these phases, probably wouldn't be a cycle.
Mm.
Awesome.
Well, full
Well,
moon.
the big moment, yes. Speaking of,
The big moment, which is not more important than any other moment, but the big
but
moment. But it is. No, I'm just kidding.
but it is.
No.
How
And
ironic that it would be like the Libra energy for the big full moon, because we're also like, well, I mean, I don't know, not me. It's about
Huh?
you.
What? Exactly.
yeah, so we do have two full moon people here with us today, which is great. So we get like, genuine feedback. And I think so full moon energy, what's really interesting with full moon energy, and it's fascinating that both of you are Libra sun signs, but in general, full moon energy is very connected to relationships and understanding yourself through relationships. It's literally that, the polarity, understanding yourself through the mirror of the other. And full moon people, while it can, like, I think that's kind of where the lunar cycle has a little bit of a twist, which I find very fun because,
Mhm.
up in this growth phase we've been talking about, it kind of has been a bit more mission driven, it feels like. But once we get to the full moon, it like from what I've read and experienced about the full moon energy in a birth chart, it's not necessarily about like success. It's more about relationships. That's like the main focus is
Yeah.
relationships, full moon people, and like all types of relationships. How do I learn about myself through another person, whether it be a friendship or a partnership? How do I find a partnership that really seems to be a good reflection of me and my life's learning? And what does that mean? So, yeah, I love that little twist. It's like, well, you thought you were getting to this big moment of success, but actually, it's all about people we love.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. I mean, I guess us Libras would argue that success in life is to have a successful relationship or to find, that balance in the other. And I think about it in the sense of the light, that the moon has no light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun. And so to reach the full moon stage and have it be representative of perhaps another person fully reflecting the light that you emit and being in relationship with them where they're able to then show you yourself through the lens of what they're reflecting back to you. It's very interesting for us Libras as we learn, for us Libra sun people, learning about ourselves through the reflections of others, and how we end up cultivating a better relationship with ourselves that way in the cyclical routine that we find ourselves in. I mean, gosh, Simona, I'm sure you have some things to add to that as well. Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'll be interested. I'm interested in here because we were both full moon phases, but you're the Taurus moon and I'm Aries, so that has a slightly different quality. But for me, yes, it's first of all, like you had said earlier on, Isabella, it's so fun to see those patterns that keep coming back. So Libra's relational, full moon is relational. So it's like really an emphasis on that. And I was reading some of Demetra George's work on this, and she was saying it's not just relating, it's conscious relating, right? So really learning about yourself. And I was thinking with an Aries moon, the impact that you have on people and how to have that kind of, oh, wow, this is learning about who you are, but how you're influencing other people, and maybe learning how to be in relationship in a more harmonious way while still holding your own. And so I think that's always something that's like part of my journey of learning, is not just learning how to see other people's perspective, but learning how I am part of that and how to kind of balance it and still stand in myself, in my light, while honoring other people's perspectives. So that's been a big theme for me. And I think another thing with the full moon, and Rachel, that I know if I'm off here, but I think there's also something about um, meaning and like a life of really trying to find what is meaningful and purposeful, and that feels very resonant to me as well. I feel like my whole life has been kind of this quest for meaning and finding that thing that feels purposeful, and you do that through relating with people. You kind of learn about what that is. I don't know if you find that to be true as well, Isabella.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's the most important part of life, yeah, is being in relationship with others and forming connections. And maybe I'm just biased, but definitely find more of a drive for that. Definitely when it comes to success, rather than some type of cultural, um, yeah, delineation of what it means to be successful through career and climbing that ladder per se. I just really love that you reminded us of that, Rachel, that yeah, the full moon phase is really about relationship, not about like the success of the show or whatever. Maybe if we go back to the theater example, that it's like, are you enjoying the actual production with the other actors on stage and the people that you're in relationship with and the relationship with the crowd and their reaction back to you and stuff? And it's not about how many ticket sales you had. It's about how fun the performance was and how much the crowd, right, reacted to it. I don't know. Would you agree with that Kaia, too, in terms of the theater example that we're going with here?
Well, yeah, that like sparks so much. I was like, absolutely, like the feedback and like the reflection of the audience onto you, vice versa, which feels very full moon because it is essentially a relationship collaboration, literally on stage within a relationship. You have to be in a relationship with the audience, and it literally is like, and it's visible, it's illuminated, and that's something else. I've always been curious about too with how full moon folks feel with that whole like how does that come into play and like versus like the new moon energy too, what does that kind of feel like? So yes, and
Well, yeah, if you're putting on a show and now it's the moment of truth and you're up there, you're gonna really
God,
know
yeah.
how you're like you're not up there in a vacuum. You're up there with other people are I mean, this almost sounds a little Leo too with like the reciprocity and the audience, but there is a Libran quality there. It's like you're not it's relational. It's not just you up there on your own and that's it. It's about this. It's about the reciprocity, the relationship between the audience,
Yeah.
between the cast members. Yeah, totally.
Hey, it really interesting. I've never really thought about this before, but like our conversation, especially with the theater example, is just making me think about this. So if
Mm.
we imagine that if we bring all the different examples of this full moon energy, so with the theater, it's like, okay, the show is live, it's happening. And if we bring in the idea of the plant, this is the moment where the flower opens. So this is the flowering moment. And if you think about both of those, it's like when you look at a flower, it's easy to get, just transfixed by the beauty. And when you're in the theater, you kind of lose yourself in the experience. So that's really interesting to contemplate with that full moon energy, just sort of like being immersed in the experience. It's like you're fully in the experience of looking at the flower, smelling the flower, or watching the show. So that does kind of change that idea of what does full moon mean.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, again, just kind of bringing it back to how there's just so much emphasis on the full moon, of course, right? In storytelling, it's so beautiful to look at. Like, how can you not? The effects we see it has, like, on everybody, the kind of wild feralness of it, too. Like, there's also, like, there's a wild, hasty side to it. And so I don't really know what I'm saying with this next point, but just again, I'm just kind of bringing it back to like magic or practitioners and just kind of seeing these bookends of the cycle. And you can work with the moon at any time, of course, but there is such emphasis. Like a lot of people use this for manifestation or a lot of spell work or for charging. They also do with the new moon as well. So it's just kind of interesting because that was the perspective I was coming in with. And then it took me a while. I was like, oh, fascinating when we bring in the relationship point and then the meaning as well. It just, again, I don't really know what I'm saying here, but it's more, I just wanted to like kind of hold all that because there are all these kind of different avenues with the full moon here, it seems.
I'm wondering too, because
Mm.
we've talked about maybe not just Libra, but also maybe going into the Scorpio aspect of
Mm.
what am I thinking? The merging of the self with another, where once something has come to culmination, and like you were saying, you're really immersed in it fully, and it changes the root of who you are after you've been
Huh.
submerged in that immersion with this other thing that's come to fruition in some way. So that root prediction of the seed, it's like that coming to culmination now is it changes you. Um,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah,
That's so
I was thinking
beautiful.
like you said, like Simona, because you're a Libra Aries, but I'm Libra Taurus, so I actually have the quincunx, and it's not
Yes.
quincunx; it's very tightly an orb, and so it's still a different feeling. It's like I am even wrapping my head around how to relate this quincunx energy to the full moon phase
Mm.
because it's not the same as the opposition, and we're not getting that true balancing act.
Right.
And I haven't thought about it enough to have a developed thought, so I'm going to pass it on to someone else.
It's beautiful though. That's where we want to hold it at this Astro Lounge. The idea is
Yes.
not to have everything fully developed. It's to just like
Mm.
talk it out and think about it because there is that nuance, which is so beautiful. But I think what you were saying, and I thought that was so thinking about that kind of Scorpio, how it does alchemize you and change you, and thinking about this whole cycle as a whole. Now we're going to move past the full moon. It's like the first stage is a little bit more subjective. We're growing, we're learning. But when we get to the full moon, there's almost like a shift in consciousness, almost like the awareness opens, it becomes more objective. And now we're moving into like the other half, like a whole other phase. So there is something
Yeah.
that has now alchemized in a way and transformed. And now we're in the second half of the phases. I mean, the cycle is quite different in quality. Would you say that is true, Rachel, in your and how you think about it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there is a definite difference in fundamental tone from the first four moon phases to the last four moon phases. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Oh, and one interesting thing I always like to point out with the full moon. So, Taylor Swift is a full moon person, and I find it just so obvious. Like pretty much all of her songs and her
Oh
exploration of life
yeah.
is through relationships, you know? It's like she's such
Mhm.
a great example of a full moon person, I think, because it's right there.
Yeah.
So
Like an
good.
obvious like example, like
Yeah.
literally there. And the masses, she's like she has so many like what are they called? The what Swifties or whatever. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah, the
there's such
Swifties.
a like a relational pull there.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so true. It's not just
Mhm.
like, the relationships that she writes about, but like she does like she focuses on the relationships with her
Mhm.
people, the people she like really
Yeah.
cares about that relationship. It's not just oh, these are people who bought tickets. It's like she really nurtures the relationship with people who take the time to listen to her. So I think
Yeah.
she's a good full moon example.
That is
Mm,
a good example.
Love
nice.
that. Nice. Bringing in a good, that's a strong example for sure. And everybody knows
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. Like you can really relate to that. Should we move
Okay.
on? What do you think to the
Yeah,
next
let's do
phase?
it.
Yes. So now we can imagine we are in our waning phase now, and the next phase is called the disseminating phase. So it could also be called the waning gibbous, but disseminating I think is helpful so you don't mix the,
Mhm.
gibbous phases up. So disseminating is in the plant cycle, it's when the plant bears fruit. So the flower has died off and now it has provided fruit. And this is very interesting as well because this is like the characteristics of a disseminating moon person is when they really feel that they have something to provide or offer, whether it's an idea or a concept or something that they want to give to the world. So it's literally like, I have fruit and I want it to be made use of. I want it to be given to people. I want it to be used for things. And so it's really fascinating because like I know quite a few different people, including myself, who, are either self-employed and we offer things, like we've learned things and then we disseminate to people. But I do not feel the disseminating energy as being like fundamentally like for me it's a very different energy. Whereas I know people who are born under the disseminating moon phase and they do like they facilitate groups, they offer different things. They have containers with different people, and it's really like a mission for them to provide or spread a concept of some sort. It's like from my experience, now I'm going to offer you my particular philosophy from everything that I've learned. And it's a real mission. It's like, in a way, like that's the mission. I think, maybe one of the most mission oriented of the phases is
Yeah.
offering those sort of lived experiences or concepts. Um, One of the challenges for these people is they can maybe be too locked into their philosophy, and like it's such a mission to kind of offer it where they might not be open to other philosophies or other sort of ideas.
Mm,
So interesting because as you're saying that, I'm hearing a little bit of Sag coming in. So we had that
yeah.
Libra Scorpio, and now I'm hearing that Sag like sharing the torchbearer, but also could become the fanatic if not careful. So that's
Yes,
Mhm.
interesting.
exactly. Well
Very-
spotted.
Yeah.
It's so fun. It's so fun. Okay.
Is well, my sister is a Sag sun, and she has a disseminating moon phase,
Wow.
and I she is a I love she teaches, and I feel like that is a way of disseminating. There's a lot of stuff that she felt aligned with. And the way I see her, and she's got a Virgo moon. And so like just always wanting to like help people, be of use, be of service. And through her teaching, through that kind of Sag lens, and then you filter it through, hello, Waning Gibbous. It was just really cool to see that, because it really is like, has just kind of always been in her, even like as like a kid, teenager. She was like running children's camps at like 17, 18, which is insane, but she was doing it, and like disseminating and like getting it out there.
Mm,
That's an
Yeah.
amazing example. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Great
Right?
example.
Just see her going all the time. I'm like, oh, cool.
such a good example. Yeah,
And you
definitely.
explained it well, Rachel, because I've struggled with that phase and kind of understanding it. And again, going back to this, the fruit bearing plant example really helps because, right, like the point of the fruit of the plant is to disseminate its seeds so that the plant may continue to live and so that the cycle may continue. And so that as we're in this now sort of decaying second half
Mm,
of the cycle, that we know that there is still a semblance of that original seed that will always be there and will continue and grow off into their own cycles. So I like that because even the word disseminating is, I think, confusing for people when we use
yeah.
that to describe this moon phase. I remember maybe using that years ago for my ex-boyfriend, and he was like, what? Like that sounds like depressing. Like he was very confused about like what is. I wish I could recall now what he actually said because it was so dang funny. But I was like, no, 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 this is not like a bad moon phase or something. It sounds like evil or something like that, where people like really don't know the jargon. But that was a beautiful way to express its purpose. And yeah, you're sharing the fruits of the labor of all the growth that's been done and the wisdom that's been accumulated along the way.
Yeah. And Rachel, would you agree also? I've heard a lot like publishing being kind of analogy, metaphor, a way to get into this like phase. Is that how we could, like, if someone who is like had, let's say like a writer or
Mhm.
someone who's distilled a lot of wisdom in their time, and they're publishing books or booklets, does that feel like resonant with that kind of phase?
Yeah, I think like if you're teaching or publishing, so if
Yeah.
the desire is I want my legacy to live on, I'm not at the end of anything, but
Mhm.
I still have I have good energy. I want to share it. I want to kind of yeah, make something more permanent that I can share, which publishing would probably be a great example, but teaching or being a facilitator of some sort, or even just having an idea that are very, you feel very aligned with, and then you share it with people in some way is a great way to facilitate that if you are that moon phase person.
Okay.
Sorry, you said it's not the end of the cycle, and that's the importance. It's like the excitement of like just having reached the culmination of the
Yeah.
cycle and had the epiphany moment, and now having that excitement to be like, I gotta share, I gotta tell everybody, like while it's still fresh and while I'm still feeling confident, right?
Mhm.
Before we get to the end of the cycle, when it's more of the like, I know nothing, and like I am just one little seedling in the universe, and I realize, I have the Pisces wisdom. It's like, yes, aha, like I have to get this out while I just grasped this important thing, whatever it is.
I
Yeah, and
love
I
that. The
think if we
fact
were
that
to go back to our examples, like so if we take the example of going into a new habit or learning a new skill, it's like, okay, now you've mastered the skill enough to the point where you might start teaching it. So imagine, someone on a yoga path, they've learned enough, they've mastered enough, they've taken their yoga teacher training course, and now they're like, oh, now I can go share this. I've learned enough now that I can share it, and my philosophy and my experience are very much going to be a part of what I share. And I think the example with the theater, it's like, okay, the show has happened, but now it's like, okay, now the reviews come out. People are sharing about their experience. It's spreading. It's being published. Like people are talking about it. Yeah, it's being spread amongst people who weren't at the show.
Ooh,
I loved
beautiful.
that part also with Isabella saying like the excitement, let's get it out there, that's sharing, and then
Yeah.
moving into also like establishing a legacy or leaving something behind. And you can see it moving into that Capricorn archetype too, like having something lasting that will go on beyond you,
Yes.
so it's all really tied in so beautifully together. And hopefully, if you get good reviews, the show will go last. It will go on in people's minds forever as well. But keeping with that analogy. But should we continue with this? Does anyone want to add a little bit more? Should we move on to the next phase?
Yeah, we'll go on to the next phase. We have two more left.
Mhm.
So the next one is the third quarter square. And this one, very much like how the first quarter square was called the crisis in action, the third quarter square is called the crisis in consciousness. So this one, I find this one might be one of I find it to be one of the more interesting ones to explain to
Yeah.
someone that that I'm just starting to work with, and there's kind of a reason for it. So, when we're in the third quarter square, this is when you're so imagine you've had those strong beliefs and strong philosophies, and now your confidence in them is starting to wane a little bit. It's not to say that you didn't believe that, but you're starting to change and your priorities are starting to change. So even though that was valid, what you shared, imagine, we're going through, this is where we start to get into various different lifetimes. So your lifetime before was the disseminating phase. I'm not saying that that's how it works. I'm just saying imagine. Um, Imagine your lifetime before was the disseminating phase, you shared all this stuff, and then in this new lifetime, you're like, well, maybe my life is different. My circumstances are different. I don't, that what I believe then doesn't really apply to here, but I don't also have anything new that I'm exploring. So very often, a person born under a third quarter square phase, there will be a moment in their life where, especially like the beliefs and sort of systems that they grew up with, there'll be like a moment where they really go in a different direction, or they'll at least feel the crisis of consciousness around that. So even if it's not like a direct sort of break from something, they'll feel that tension within them. They'll maybe like imagine someone who grew up and they lived in the same town that they grew up in. They were surrounded by the same people. Everyone sort of went on the same trajectory. But then like they go travel to a country where like life is totally different and they realize, oh, I didn't have to live that way, but I've already kind of lived a lot of that. Now, how do I sort of bring in this new awareness that I have of how other people are living? Because I kind of liked a little bit of that. But what does that mean for my life now? How do what? It's a little it's very healthy because in a way you're really dissolving the like very strong ego identities, and that can be very like spiritually elevating in many ways. But at the same time, from a practical standpoint, it can be very challenging. And sometimes people born under this moon phase really do have like a direct sort of shift into, okay, well, I had this experience and then I completely changed my life circumstances and I went in this other direction that was more aligned with me.
Thank you. This has been the phase I have struggled with kind of comprehending.
Yeah.
So thank you. Like that was so clear. And I'm like, okay, okay. You like helped me anchor back into like where we are in the cycle and the crisis of consciousness. And so like for example, like if someone had been born with like a different like belief system and then maybe throughout their life they're like, this doesn't feel in alignment, and I kind of have pursued this other source of belief system, would that be like an example of this kind of energy?
Exactly. Yeah. But whereas like for some people it like imagine someone grew up in a household where different ways of living were
Mm,
accepted. And so there's no sort of challenge or friction around going off and exploring something that you prefer. But
yeah.
imagine you grow up in a household where there's just a very strict way of it being, and
Mm,
you don't question it for many years. And then there's a moment where you're like, it didn't always feel right, but I didn't quite have the additional exposure to other things to help me understand what wasn't feeling right for me. And then at some point, there's like you are exposed to something and it kind of wakes you up from like, oh my gosh, I don't think that the way I've been living is actually like aligned with me. And I didn't even know. And now I have to like kind
yeah.
of contend with that. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
And can I ask you also, Rachel, have you found, because I feel like I've also have heard that this phase is associated sometimes with people who have kind of a rebel spirit or a contrarian way, maybe because they've come to this kind of reorientation and now they're trying to shift, like kind of have other people kind of question and think about their own beliefs and kind of push through. Do you find that to be true with people born during this phase?
Yeah, and again, I think it would depend on this is where the zodiac signs come in. Like if you are, let's see, okay, so if someone is an Aquarius sun, let's just say for example,
Yeah.
it could be, yeah, so Aquarius sun, and then let's just go so then Scorpio moon, Aquarius sun and Scorpio moon, like maybe with different things. I'm not saying that this person would be like this, but maybe with various different other things like a strong Uranus,
Mm.
maybe that sort of break from the tradition that they would see as tradition from their upbringing, that would be exciting and exhilarating and like, yes, this is bold and I'm going to go for it. But imagine someone who is a Cancer sun
Mm.
and well, I guess if they have an Aries moon, that might be maybe they would like that too. Okay, Cancer sun, and I think you could be a disseminating phase if you're a Cancer sun and a Taurus moon. I
Mm.
think that that is possible. So imagine someone like that who's a bit more comfortable with the known or home. Like that could be really quite a lot um, to contend with, even though they feel it deep down. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I find it a little challenging to communicate this with someone is I don't know where they are on that timeline. Like sometimes
Yeah.
people don't feel that there is something happening deep within them, and sometimes it's really obvious, you know? So
Mhm.
it's an interesting one, but usually there's something that they need to really think about that aligns with them on a very deep and personal level. And it's a process of sort of turning the ship very slowly in that direction. It's usually not like a fast sort of thing, it's just like a
Right.
waking up process.
Hmm.
Beautiful.
Right. I mean, like its title, a crisis of consciousness. I mean, that's a very serious thing, and that's enough to send people into some deeper levels of mental health, type of challenges, even too, when there's like really significant changes in their awareness and of the world and whether their life has been in alignment with it or not. And I was also thinking, I know we've been using the Aquarius example, but also kind of using these signs around the cycle that it has this Aquarian vibe of like just like wake up and think for yourself and don't conform to the way things have been just because it's always what you've known, and like how can we be more independent with exploring what it is that we envision for our personal experience of the world and beliefs and awareness and etc. So
Yeah,
interesting stuff you've
so
shared.
interesting.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Are we
Well,
going to
Well,
our final moon phase?
but
we're all really taking that to reflect in.
No, we're sitting
It's
with
an
this face.
Mm.
it's a deep one. I think it's
It
a deep one.
is.
I think I like honestly when I've worked with people with the third quarter square phase, they like most people are like, oh my gosh, yes, that's so
Mm.
validating. So that's really nice that it can feel very validating. And of course, everyone has very different experiences with it. Some people are like, yeah, I made this major life change, and it's like way it feels way better now. That's kind of like the benefit is like maybe that's the psychological ease that it can bring is like if they are in that position of contemplating something that needs to change, or even just changing, not changing actual things in their life, but like imagine you have things going on with your living situation and a partner. You don't necessarily have to, abandon everything, but maybe you might say to your partner, hey, there's conversations that we haven't been having that I really need to have. Can you help us kind of do this together so that we can change some of our habits and patterns? And so you might just need to make adjustments within the construct of your actual life as well.
That's That's
Gotcha.
beautiful. It doesn't have to mean changing everything. It's like an internal
Yeah.
reorientation or within the relation, a reorientation. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great way to think about that.
Yeah. Okay. So the
All right.
last moon phase, which tends to be I mean, we love all the moon phases, but this one is very magical.
Yeah.
It is the balsamic moon phase.
It even has a nice name, I
It
think.
does.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the balsamic moon phase, it really is, if you think about this is where the plant has started to fully go back to the earth. So it's wilted, but it's also extremely rich and dense with nutrients. And this is like the fertilizer for the next growth phase. It can have that sense of the mystical of like a lot of experience. It's very like literally like balsamic vinegar. It's very dense, and there's like a process that it's been through. It's not a ripe fruit. It is, something that's been through a very long process.
Mm.
And with the balsamic phase, I think that in a kind of a very 12th house way, there can be a sense where they do enjoy a bit of time, sort of on the fringes of certain things or time to process things, like to enjoy a bit of a slower time. And what I love to name with the balsamic moon phase, so the balsamic moon phase, it's not, so it's, I know we haven't quite gotten to the new moon, but it actually looks like a crescent as well. So it's the other side of the crescent. Um, and you can only see the balsamic moon phase in the very, very early hours of the morning before sunrise. So if you imagine, if you've ever been awake at that moment where it's like, okay, people haven't quite woken up yet, and the streets feel kind of quiet, and it feels like it's very magical and
Yeah.
mysterious, but it's also very quiet and it feels very sacred in a way. I
Mm.
love to think about just that moment if you've ever been awake at that time. And this is one of those phases where it's like from the opposite of the new moon. Again, like if you think about, I almost think that the balsamic and the new moon are very different, more so than the new moon and the full moon.
Yeah.
The balsamic moon does have that sense of weight of experience, and they can almost have this sense that when they meet people or have experiences, it's not new. It does feel very familiar. It's like, oh wow, okay, this again. Okay, so what do I need to wrap up here? What do I need to tie up? Do I need to sort of just move this energy along? Do I need to like say any final things in a way? So there might be a sense of like closure with various different patterns over a lifetime.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really, I love this phase. And I've talked to, actually, I've talked to a lot of people that have this phase. It seems like one that I draw in. But one thing that I brought up that people seem to resonate to is the sense of almost like this karmic, like these relationships that feel like you were saying, endings. Not every relationship, like some are long term, but finding that they run into people and they have these experiences that feel very familiar, very karmic from the past that they need to tie up loose ends with, and then they're out of the life. So I wonder if you've talked to clients that have had that experience and how that feels for them, because I know that it can be a little bit challenging on that front as well. Like all of a sudden there's this intense relationship and then it dissolves and it's gone.
Well, I have to say, just in my experience, anytime I've met with a balsamic moon person, they're really excited to be a balsamic moon person. They're like, yeah, that's
It is cool.
me. Like it feels very like earned in a way.
I like that. They've been
They
through it
seem to be
all. They've
They seem
earned
to
it.
really love it. I love it. And I get it. It's a very magical moon. And it's potent,
Mm.
there's a potent energy to it. But I think more, I mean, I honestly haven't spoken to anyone where it feels challenging. It's almost like I'm ready to it doesn't necessarily have to even be putting a relationship to bed, but putting a particular pattern within a relationship to rest. And there's like a nice like, okay, that is complete now.
Mm. Yeah, it's like how they use the example of composting things right back into the earth, and it's the end of the cycle with that fruit, like you said, that it's no longer ripe, and perhaps it's fallen and the seeds have been disseminated, and then like new life is starting, and then that old residual fruit is decomposing, fermenting, composting deep into the roots of the earth, where a source wisdom very much is connected to. And I love that idea that you can end or close up certain things in the cycle without completely getting rid of it. But that melding with yeah, the deeper source consciousness of what brings us all here, and the potential for what new can come out of it, because it's not just throwing it away. It's not just tossing it. It's really the alchemical transformational process of the end of the cycle. It's really beautiful that continues on. It continues on.
It is so beautiful, and I feel like this is a phase where people are straddling those
Mhm.
two worlds, like the end and the new. And I wonder if people that you've talked to, or any of you have talked to, that feel that way, that like they're the in between, where they are wrapping up things, but there's also a little bit of, I've sometimes heard that they can be also had this sense of like not necessarily being ahead of their time, but they are looking to what's next. There's like they're in this in between, they're in this liminal space. So I wonder if you've had anyone that's spoken to that.
I like the name, the word liminal space for this. I think this is more liminal than the new moon, for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Apologies,
Mhm.
I had to adjust my computer there. Well, yeah, and I love this one when you're talking about the kind of the straddling these two different kind of realms, and then the liminal, because it is a kind of magical, very feels 12th housey. And maybe I'm just kind of saying what we've been saying, but do you feel like sometimes there's like a not a knowing, or like a maybe like a hint of like what's to come, or like being able to kind of like tap into things that maybe other people can't quite like, I don't know, see, resonate, if that makes sense? If
Mm.
they're like a little aware. I don't
Or
know.
like psychic even, or or have
Mm,
premonition, or have that kind of like you're like
oh
in
yeah.
intuit things that
Yeah.
are
Yeah, and I think like sensitivity to energies for sure. And if you
Wow.
think about it, like imagine, that another another metaphor in case you needed one, in case you're like
I love
nothing you said
metaphors.
Yeah, like
resonated. So, so I like to think about someone going on a hike up a mountain. And this is, when, you start off the hike and you don't know what's going to happen. You're super excited. You might be moving a bit faster because you haven't like learned how to pace yourself quite yet. You get to the top, you enjoy, you're like, yay, great view. And then you start walking down, and then you're coming to the very end. And the very end is the balsamic phase. And if you think about it, it's like, okay, you've collected so much experience. Like if someone comes running up towards you that's about to start, you're like you're a lot more like um it's almost like you can anticipate people in a way, because it's like in a again, this is getting into that kind of past life territory. You can imagine like you've seen it before. Like you're like, yeah, I kind of get this. I kind of almost can anticipate what you're about to say because I've heard it like a million times.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So,
Wow, it's been such a beautiful, I'm just absorbing this all. What a beautiful experience that we've moved through together.
yeah.
It's like you feel like you've gone through something as we talk about all these phases. Like we've actually journeyed through them. I feel like now I'm like in this phase, like I just want to settle in and sit with it.
And I feel like the balsamic phase right now. And
Right?
oh, I do have
Yes.
one last question actually about this phase, because I get a little confused sometimes myself. Would we call this also, like if you called it the dark moon, is that appropriate, or is that technically a little bit later on?
I would actually call the balsamic and the new moon the dark moon because,
Okay.
astronomically, like in the sky, they're both very dark. Like the balsamic,
Yeah.
you do get a bit of the crescent, like if it's
Hmm.
uh closer to the 45-degree mark, but the closer that the moon gets to the sun in a conjunction, the more you actually won't be able to see anything.
Hmm.
So I would say that depending on the degree, because like even with the new moon, the further it gets towards the crescent, you'll start to actually see the crescent shape, even if it's an actual
Yeah.
new moon by degree. So I always kind of like if I were to call it like the dark moon, I would say it kind of depends more on like the degree, like how close the sun and moon are together. But it
Okay.
could be either the balsamic or the new moon. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm always kind of curious about that. It's such a very, I'm always trying to clock it when we
Mm,
can't quite see,
yeah.
what's out there, especially with the lunar phases. And then I'm kind of wondering, before we start wrapping things up here, for folks who are really curious about what their moon phase is, but they're not sure how to find it, and if they're confused how to do it by eye on their chart, is there a good resource for people to use?
Yeah, I actually, so there's a few, like, so Dane Rudhyar's book called The Lunation Cycle is a great
Mhm.
reference book, and it's kind of the original one. Now, of course, like for more advanced astrologers, you can take the course that all four of us have taken at Astrology University, and that is Demetra George's course called The Lunar Phases and Planetary Phase Relationships. But that is definitely for people who have like been studying astrology for a bit longer. And then for like shorter dips, both Demetra George and Kelly Surtees, they both have really great blog posts on their sites about the lunar phases. I think that they might detail a little bit about how you can find out your own lunar phase. Um, but either way, they both have really great like sort of synopses of the lunar phases on their blog. So if you just like type in Demetra George lunar phases or Kelly Surtees lunar phases, they both have more concise things that are not like a whole book or a whole course.
Gotcha.
And I think AstroSeek might have it too, where you can put it in, I
That's
believe.
true, actually.
I
Yeah.
Yeah,
think, right? So people
yeah.
can look at it there, but just quickly, technically speaking, each phase is about 45 degrees from like the sun, and it's always within relation. So it's 45 degrees, we're thinking from the sun to the moon, like in the next. That might get too technical. So it might be easier for beginners to go through these other resources first, but
Yeah.
That's an
perfect.
important point, Simona, that I was also wanting to clarify, in case we glossed over it earlier, is that the lunar phase relationship is specifically talking about the relationship
Done.
between the moon and the sun. And so
Yes,
that needs to be,
really important.
yes, slammed in there that, yeah, you're looking at the sun's position and you're looking at the moon's position to get an idea of what part of the cycle the moon is in. Because the moon is always in relationship to the sun. And like you said, Simona, all planets are all in relationship to each other because everything is cyclical. Everything in astrology is cyclical. And it's so enlightening to be able to find out where we are in the cycle.
Yes, yes.
Yay.
Beautiful.
Aw, this was so I know we kept saying it, whatever, we'll keep saying it. We were just so excited because we are all Astro like loves and besties, and like I was just thinking about this while I was taking a shower the other night, and I'm like, oh, community is important, right? But it's easy to be like community is important, blah blah blah. And then I was like, oh wait, it's really important. And I was just thinking about our, relationships and connections, and I'm like, sorry guys, we're going to be friends for life. And because we also to be able to kind of dip into and fall into this language with one another that maybe other people in our life, although they're like, yay, go astrology, they're not speaking it. So it's like to be able to speak that with people that you also love and hold closely, it's just really lovely. And I know we're gonna have you all on for more episodes, for various interests or topics. But we also really want people to come and support you too. So if you want to take a minute to just, describe, give us your Instagram handle page. And if you're offering any readings or anything that's going on where people can find you, we'll want that info.
Would you like to go, Isabella?
Oh, sure, I'll go first. My name is Isabella Cianciolo. I have a website. It's astrologyformindfulness.com. That's the best way to reach me. I do take readings. I'm totally accepting new clients. Love to look into charts. And like I said, look into the natal chart, and I specialize more in looking at like family dynamics and relational dynamics. I'm a Libra sun, Cancer rising. Those are the things that I really care about. And I'm happy to work with anybody in whatever capacity they're interested in. So yeah, check me out, astrologyformindfulness.com.
Awesome.
My website is just my name, rachelhicks.com. My first name is spelled a bit differently. It is Rachelle, and my last name is Hicks. So rachelhicks.com. I have my Instagram links there too, so I won't spell out my Instagram handle as well. You can just find it on my website. Yeah, and I also offer one-to-one readings. And if anyone is in Dublin, I have done a few in-person astrology and mythology in-person workshops at a lovely Dublin-based yoga studio, which is really fun because I love to explore myth and astrology. That's kind of my favorite specialty thing, besides lunar phases. Um, so yeah, you can find all the info for that on my website too.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for taking your time and energy to chat about the lunar phases. We love you guys.
We love you guys. This was so special. I feel full. I feel full.
Yeah.
I feel happy. This is great. Can't wait to have you guys back on. So, to the next time.
Oh, yes. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye. Love you
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you to all that joined. Bye bye.